The Wyldlynx community recently got together to discuss the power of ControlPoint. Here are some of the highlights from Carl Duncan's presentation.
Through with, I suppose, again, we've been talking about idle, and idle is the underpinning technology of ControlPoint, being the application that sits on top. We're just going to go through a couple of examples of effectively some reduction of information. We've talked about searching. We're going to get some really steroidy kite stuff about audio to text and video analytics coming up soon. But this is really just about, I suppose, having that structured data and also unstructured data and getting rid of what you can. So ControlPoint, similar to idle, connects to a bunch of connectors out of the box, all very similar to probably the common challenges that we have every single day. There's also a raft of 150 additional connectors. Again, there's the same connectors, so there's no smoke and mirrors here. It's the same scenario with all those additional connectors that you can have, because people have different systems and things like that. For those that don't know what ControlPoint can do, effectively it does three main things. It understands the data, allows you to categorize and classify that information, which is again similar to what Ben was talking about before. And the last thing is actually allows you to act. So acting as in, I actually now have a duplicate, I want to get rid of it, or I want to move this into Content Manager because it's a record, then I can act upon that. In all the work and all the fun demonstrations and discussions with clients, I'm sure it's the same for the MicroFocus guys, a lot of other tools do some of this picture, but might not do the full end-to-end solution of that picture. This is just, I suppose, just some context, because I suppose what's coming up now as the demo is really just around reduction of duplication and getting rid of what you can. There's effectively, and again, many schools have thought about this, but 3 data zones. One being those, finalized records, that stuff that should be sitting in Content Manager. There's also then content in progress, because I'm, drafting a policy as we speak. It's my daughter's birthday certificate, or it's just things that I'm, got on the drive. We've found Game of Thrones. We've found Nashville was the latest season that we found on a client site. And again, we were backing up, and I won't get into privacy and breaches and costs, but users will be users. One of my favourite sayings, they'll just put stuff wherever they can because they can. So again, it's looking at that bigger picture. Bill's talked about this concept of ROT before, so the redundant, obsolete, and trivial. So in a control point perspective, redundant is literally a pure duplication. Obsolete is time-based, so I'm a fan to say that some information might be created 5 years ago, but if it's not accessed, it might, in say 10 years, it has less value than if it was created 5 years ago and accessed every day. So again, based on that sort of time-based scenario, you can again tweak and have a look at that. And then trivial is literally all the things like thumbnails. You'd be surprised, thumbnails like a couple of kilobytes in size. You look at a big enterprise solution, that adds up very quickly, or IT files, if you're IT guys and girls. Some of the things that we're going to cover today is really just looking at the data growth. Obviously, it's specific to the topic we're talking to today, but being able to actually see how your repository has grown over time, and also seeing how here, whether again it's being created, accessed, or modified, will change that lens a bit, because again, we might have created a document 10 years ago, but people are accessing it every day. So that, to me, should be more important than if people haven't touched it or viewed it in 10 years.
You said the concept of people may have kind of touched it, so it gets a new timestamp, but it really hasn't been changed.
So again, you've got accessed or modified, so 2 different filters, so you can choose. So if I've accessed it, I'm viewing it. Again, it might be a policy that was 5 years old, so that might actually be still relevant because it's the current policy, versus I'm modifying it as well. So again, you can't, in our team, you can't really just look at the lens and say, well, it's created 10 years ago, it doesn't mean anything, because you've got retention rules for everyone in the room, but also, depending on what users have done with it, changes how you might treat that information. The last thing, which is obviously policies. So again, going back to that comment about acting, you've got the ability to actually act within the tool. You don't have to go out and do something somewhere else. You literally, within the tool, you've got the ability to tag stuff, remove it, keep it, dispose it, do what you need to do in that space.
Move to Content Manager. It's like, do we think of this as a separate tool, or does it really need Content Manager? It's more like an addition to Content Manager than a...
No, it doesn't need Content Manager.
No, so it can be literally a standalone tool. We have some customers who don't connect it to Content Manager, and we have majority, obviously because in the business we're in, have connected it to Content Manager. Because again, if you don't have let's say a records repository, whatever it may be, take CM out of it, you're still going to have network drives, you're still going to have Exchange, you're still going to have file shares, you're still going to have all these other problems of unstructured information. So you don't have to have one without the other. So this is what the ControlPoint UI looks like: repositories, categories, and policies. Repositories, just like the gents have been talking about, is that, what am I looking at? The shared drives, the network drives, the SharePoint, so forth and so on. Categories is when you want to actually categorize that information, and so that's literally looking at, I want to find everything about Carl Duncan, barking dog, and my address that I won't name in public again. And then obviously, or actually give ControlPoint a document and say learn from it. Again, same sort of content that we're using in IDLE. This is what a HR policy looks like for me because I'm in Queensland Health. Go and find its brothers and sisters and bring it back. And then policies is I actually now want to do something. I want to move it to a different storage tier because I'm archiving it, and I want to stub things in that use case. I want to move to Content Manager. I want to get rid of it. I want to manage it in place. There's lots of different options in that space. This is the UI out of the box. So again, it is very visual in that sense. So this is an organization that we've been working with for probably a while on their ControlPoint journey. And I say journey because nothing happens overnight. It does take a bit of a journey to work through some stuff. So up the top we see redundant, we're missing obsolete, and we have trivial. Now for this organization, this customer, again, these are all configurable options. So redundant is a pure duplication. We've scanned 353 gig and 84 of that can go. It's a pure duplication. The obsolete, this customer felt, and again, everyone's different, that every bit of information is important. Time-based doesn't matter. We need to keep everything. We want to look at everything. Schools of thought on that, but again, it's their choice. And then trivial files is there's 14 gig worth of trivial files that have been made up in that space.
Based on the, can they literally just click on trivial and go get it, delete all that?
Yep.
If you can find it first, identify it, and start to get some analysis on it, then you can get your rules based on what you need. But until you actually understand it, you can't set the rules, and that's the
and go back to what Bill had on one of the slides and talked about is you don't know what you don't know. Very rarely, does everyone in this room know exactly what's in their shared drive. Because we've worked with a lot of clients and we've found a lot of interesting stuff and stuff that they go, we shouldn't have Game of Thrones season 7 as an example, or we shouldn't have Nashville whole TV series that we're backing up and sharing illegal content on a network drive, hypothetically. On the right hand side again, because we're actually scanning all the content, and this is again very similar to the IDLE, the tool that underpins all this, things like password protection is very simple. It's gone and actually found that there's 167 documents out of 500,000 that have password protected documents on it. So again, it can flag it. Someone still has to go and do something. It's not going to magically fix something, but at least you didn't know that before you knew that. We see the growth rate here as well. So again, this is how the network drive has grown over the period of time. Now again, this changes for every organization because they might have done a copy and paste between different servers. They might have done whatever they needed to do. And then we can see the actual growth rate in relation to the actual disk size as well. Remembering this is only 350 gig, gets bigger as the picture gets bigger in that space. We see all the different file types. So again, similar to IDLE in what Vinay talked about before about breaking down by extensions, file types, ControlPoint does the same as well. Document is made up of things like templates, doc.x, .c, rich text files, literally everything under the sun, and you can create your own as well in that space. And if we're looking for certain types of documents, so if we're looking for things like your HR file, right here we'll be saying, hey, in this repository of information, we've found HR files. So again, it will look at that and tell you that it's found it. And again, Bill talked about that ability to find sensitive information. So right now there's 1,265 credit cards that I'm not going to click on and show everyone the credit card number in this example, but 1,265 documents that have credit cards in them, or a pattern that matches a credit card. Now again, all configurable. Credit cards start from 12 digits and go through to 19 with lots of slashes, dashes, spaces, depending on the country of origin. But again, just an example of showing you that. So duplications. There's two ways you can look at duplications. There's literally by set, so this will group them all together because you're looking at a set of duplication, and there's by location. So as an example here, we can have a look at a PDF file and actually notice that we've got 5 different copies of this document. And again, similar to the find interface we talked about before, all the metadata is sitting there. Again, it's extracted that information and sitting there for you to view. You can view the document, download the document. We can see that this is sitting in an archive 2008 file. And if we look at a different one, that's the same, must be the same workshop they do every year, and they copy the file every single time. And again, when you start to look at the bigger picture and look at how many of these there are, it obviously adds up in size and complexity. We also look at things like, say, a movie. So here's an example where there's 2 movies that are exactly the same, named 2 different things. So again, it's doing an MD5 checksum for the IT people in the room to actually identify that it is a duplicate. It's like a 99.9998 scenario on that to be able to find that information. So again, from this actual user interface right now, I can tag information. So again, tagging it within ControlPoint terminology means really nothing. It's whatever you want it to mean. So I can tag that they're for review. I can tag that I need to remove these, that they're obsolete, and apply a tag or a comment. And how this, I suppose, best works and how we've found it work for a lot of our customers is no one can really play God. If you're an IT or an information manager, you don't know the business like the business know the business. So you work with the business, you actually get them to be involved in this, and they tell you what is good to go or what is good to stay. You then behind the scenes pull the levers and do what you need to do from that perspective. But again, theoretically, you just let them go through and tag it. Now what happens behind the scenes here, there's all this is getting captured, so it knows that Matt's logged in, tagged it for removal. When Errol comes in and has a look, he can process it. So it's called defensible disposition. If I had $1 for every time that we had this conversation with customers, and Sarah's laughing as we speak, when you implement a tool like this and you show visibility on what's been sitting there for so long, everyone wants to go to the furthest extreme of getting approvals for disposals. Now, in a content manager system, for everyone in the room who's done it, you've got to give blood. You physically have to, you literally sign your life away. But on a shared drive, a user can hit delete, no one cares. A user can delete a whole directory, and only those people will care when they can't find it. But it's that balance of, let's not over-engineer or over-govern things in that space. You've also, again, got different filters and refiners. This UI is exactly the same, but just going through them, you can, again, search by title, filter by date, again, created, modified, or accessed are all going to be different here. Look at the different file types, sizes, users. So if we're mapped or we're gathering the AD data, you can literally say, show me everything that Shannon's created in his 10 years at Metro North, as an example. You can look for any tagged information, and literally from this interface, you can actually apply a policy to go and actually delete the document, move the document. Again, these are all permission-based. You don't have to allow users to do it, but just examples that you can. The other one is actually by location. This is my favorite one. Because I'm a little bit of a, I suppose, a closet nerd. But theoretically what we're showing here is a concept called master locations. So what that means is, your content manager, for everyone in the room who has CM, probably is your source of truth. So what this is saying here, of the 500,000 files, there's 33,000 files on the network drive somewhere that are already corporately managed in your EDRMS. So this is your low-hanging fruit, your quick win, your ROI. You take this to the CEO and go, here we go, thanks very much for playing. This is just an example. You can also have other master repositories, so a shared drive. This client's got two, they've actually got 3 masters, 2 shared drives, and the reason for that was as part of a business process, the documents went to the CEO's area. So we didn't want to interrupt him and get rid of his documents, so we made that a master. So effectively it's doing a dedupe across all of these files and saying, well, if I add all this up and go 33,000, 37, I think that's 99, there's about 140-ish thousand documents that could go out of the 500,000. But this is one of their examples. They're actually moving, they've got 40 schools, so it's the head office, and they have 40 schools and 40 different drives underneath this. This is one of their drives. This is maybe where we found Nashville. But as an example, they've scanned just over 5 terabyte, and nearly 2 of that is actually stuff that in theory doesn't need to go. So what they're doing at the moment is, as Bill and Matt said earlier about that lift and shift to the cloud, they're actually cleaning up before they go, as opposed to post. And how they're doing that is literally running ControlPoint over the school, saying, hey, thanks school, you need to go and actually get rid of these files, keep these files here, look at age bases, keep stuff that's current, and then only move the stuff to the cloud that's needed to be moved to the cloud. We also use the tool to find out the files that are over 256 characters in length, or the file pass, because the SharePoint tools, when you migrate them, they don't glue. You come back with an exception report. So again, not out of the box, but the data's already there. Gave them a report and said, here's 10,000 files that's going to fail. Do you want to fix them now, or do you want to fix them post? Your vendor's going to give you, the other vendor is going to give you a list and say, these failed, what do you want to do? Whereas we've given you a list and said, here's a list, you should probably clean it up first so that you don't have any fails. This is just a quick example of some that have been deleted recently. Again, there's plenty of options when you're running policies here. This has actually got a review step, so that say VNA can actually say, I want to delete these and I have to approve them. And again, it won't do it and delete it until it's actually gone. So you can implement review steps if you wish, or leave them out.